Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Yair Lapid, thank you very much for your time on this busy day.
Thank you for having me, Ali.
You're surging in recent polls. A good time for elections on your standpoint, no?
I don't think it's a good time for election on the country's standpoint. I think this is the wrong government. I think it needs to be replaced. It can be replaced here within Knesset. The one thing that needs to be done is that Mr. Netanyahu will resign due to his complete failure in taking care of the corona crisis, both on health issues and economic issues. We can form a government within 48 hours with Likud, with Kahol Lavan, Israel Beitenu, Yemina, and ourselves, which will be a smaller, more effective, more efficient government. I don't think that in the midst of the crisis, election is a great idea.
So you're saying that a government is, an alternative government is possible if Benjamin Netanyahu gets out of the equation?
I think I'll be better off not answering hypothetical questions. As I was saying, I think it's the wrong government for the country of Israel in these times. This is a ridiculous government. 36 ministers, 16 deputy ministers, a bureaucratic monster that proved again and again in the last few months that there's no way it can take care of what the country right now needs. This is why the demonstrators are on the streets. This is why we have, just for comparison, right now in the European Union and I think also in the OECD countries, unemployment rate is around 6-point-something% average. Countries like Germany are 3.8. Here it's 21%. So it means, and we are of course a red state, unlike green states, in which you can travel and so on and so forth. So something is completely wrong in the way this government is handling the crisis, and it needs to be replaced. During a crisis, if you have a management that failed, then you replace the management.
But in this respect, you mentioned comparisons. The second wave hits elsewhere, not just in Israel. We have a new director general to run the battle against the coronavirus. Maybe Israel is not at such a bad state as some suggest.
Well, unlike most issues, this is not a question of narratives or views or the way we look at it. The facts are there, both on health issues. There is a reason why Greece, a country similar to us in terms of weather, size, it's even bigger than us, is not a red state, and we are. Gives me no joy to admit this, but on the other hand, it means that this is mishandled.
Well, you've been talking a lot about the economic ramifications of the virus, and in this respect, don't you agree with the Prime Minister's stance that a short-term budget is better suited at this point in time rather than a two-year budget, a budget that will be more flexible, that can address the economic grievances?
Yes, and I've said that publicly. We don't agree much, but we agree every now and then. On this we agree. I think there's no way on earth, as former Minister of Finance, I'm telling you this, there's no way on earth you can predict. When you're building a budget, it's built on predictions. And you had to have some sort of a projection on what kind of money is going to go in order to make sure you understand what kind of money you can spend. So there's no way on earth we can understand now or have accurate projections on mid-21. So what we need now is a quick budget for the next 4 or 5 months until January, and then start working immediately or simultaneously on the budget for next year.
Will you support such a short-term budget?
Yes. I think the 1 year budget, or it's not even a year, the few months ahead budget is the right thing to do for what we need. Right now, the ministries are running without a budget, so almost 15 ministries that are anyway unnecessary in this government, but ministries like the Ministry of Welfare or Health or Education needs a budget.
When was the last time you spoke to Benny Gantz?
Right after the split of Kahol Lavan, we said happy holidays on Passover, so I think this was the last time. But, you know, when I see him in Knesset Hall, we are civilized because I am civilized and so is he.
Will you be political partners again?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't want to... I try to work on myself, sometimes successfully and sometimes not, in order to remember all the time that politics is not the important issue, but the good of the people and their values you want to support. So, and this means, with the exception of the extremists from the radical left or radical right, I need to be able to cooperate and work with anyone and everyone in the political arena.
How closely aligned are you, politically speaking, with Naftali Bennett?
Well, we cooperate on mostly on economical issues as an opposition. We disagree completely on issues that, like the annexation. I think any unilateral step is a mistake. And I was vocal about this, while he thinks it's the right thing to do. So, but aside from that, so we cooperate pretty well. We've been friends.
Politically speaking, you've worked together in the past. You were political allies. Is this a comeback?
Well, I don't know if it's a comeback. I work pretty well with Avigdor Lieberman as well. Mm-hmm. Part of my job as leader of the opposition is to try and synchronize all parts of the opposition in order to make them tick, in order to make the government's life as miserable as possible, which is a mission.
Well, briefly before we move to other topics, another name of yet another former chief of staff was thrown into this boiling pot as a potential leader of the center left-wing bloc, Gadi Eisenkot. Have you spoken to him? Do you think it's a feasible option?
I've known Eisenkot for years. I'm not going to respond on talks or meetings because I never do. It has nothing to do with Eisenkot. But I'm going to lead the center in the next election. You know, I'm the head of the second largest party in the country after Likud. I'm the leader of the opposition. I'm going to be the one running for prime minister in the coming election. Well, in the next election, I don't know if it's the coming election or the next election. We don't know.
November.
Yeah.
In this respect, no matter what happens here, yes elections, no elections, November 2020 presidential race will take place. And in this respect, Joe Biden, the Democratic candidate, is very outspoken against any unilateral moves on behalf of Israel and, generally speaking, taking a different stance from what we got used to from the Trump administration. Do you think that Israel will be able to properly cooperate with the Democratic candidate if elected?
Yes, of course. First of all, listen, I don't need to remind you that one of the basic, most important fundamentals of Israel's foreign policy is the fact that we need to stay bipartisan when working with the United States, which the current government didn't do a very good job at. Joe Biden is a great friend of Israel, has always been so all his life. He's got an impeccable record in Senate in terms of supporting Israel. I read the Democratic New Platform. I don't agree with everything, but if anything, it's the triumph of the moderates in the Democratic Party. I was worried about the more radical, progressive voices that has said a few things that worried me in terms of Israel. I mean, and then when I read it, it's reassuring that they're going to stay Israel's friends. So we're going to have a friendly administration, whoever wins the coming election, and it's not my place to support any side.
Opposition Leader Mr. Yair Lapid, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ali.